All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Optimize for Charity panel. As you can tell, we are Satan herself, and
I'm Travel Class. Hi.
hi. Yeah, we'll explain our concept and also talk a little bit more about who we are in a second. But just for introduction's sake, this is a panel about making your charity runs more suited to a charity marathon setting, sort of optimizing them for what a charity marathon is aiming to do. It is not crucially for making a better submission video. There are other amazing panels for that, but a lot of the things we're going to be talking about are applicable to making a better submission video. So, but mostly it's about sort of how you prepare and how you present yourself while you are live to make for a better charity marathon experience.
Yeah, being presentationally effective is our main goal here. I'm not super concerned about how to speedrun. I know how to. I would hope you know how to do that already. But yeah.
Or if you don't, learn how to speedrun. It's
That's
really fun.
also true. You can learn how to speedrun really easily.
Yes, and there are other panels for that also.
Also
really
true.
cool stuff. But
Lots of good panels.
yes,
Wow.
indeed. And the main reason we're doing this is because we want your charity marathon runs to be better. It's a win for everybody if everyone's charity marathon runs are just better all around. So that's the main goal of this panel.
Yeah, I will say, like, it shows really effectively on you as a runner if you raise a lot of money. So try your best to raise money. That is going to be the best way to show up for a charity marathon is getting a lot of donations. And there are a lot of things you can do as a runner to influence that a lot.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of that comes with being sort of synergized with the charity, having good vibes and all that,
We'll
but we'll
talk
talk
about
about
it.
all that as we go. Also, shout outs to PT, who I used for this slide.
PT's kind of the goat at this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we're going to be talking about doing a bunch of different types of strategies. Categories, very, very important. They can really make or break your run.
We have the mindfulness aspect of how to actually think about how to do your run. There's a lot of aspects such as interacting with your host, being prepared and being mindful of the actual charity itself, making sure to reflect properly on the charity itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is the one that I'm the most passionate about and is super exciting. Incentives, bid wars, milestones, targets, all that good stuff. Making sure the audience has something to donate for your run in addition to just being excited about you.
And then commentary. Commentary is super important because the energy of the room is kind of dictated by how you interact with your couch. If you have a kind of subdued dynamic with your couch, the room's energy will kind of reflect that. And I think everyone can agree the best runs are the ones where everyone in the room is really excited about it, and that includes your couch and commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, you. We want you to be healthy, happy, and excited about your run, and that comes with the practice beforehand and also taking care of yourself. So we'll be talking about that as well.
All right.
And yeah, this is me. I'm Satan herself. I have now ran twice at main lines, including one Plants vs. Zombies run on Monday, so that was very fun. I've also commentated for Mainline. I've hosted now. This is my second year of hosting for Mainline. But I've also done a ton of stuff for Fatales and other smaller marathons, which, by the way, this all applies to both Mainline, Fatales, smaller marathons, anything you can think of, as long as it's benefiting a charity or doing mutual aid. It's all very, very relevant.
There are some asterisks. Smaller events can't do some of the crazy stuff GDQ does.
Right, but
it's generally applicable.
Yeah, the general practices. I like to speed run mostly puzzle games, PopCap games, Plants vs. Zombies, Peggle, all that stuff.
PopCap games.
Mostly point and clicks, although there's exceptions. And yeah, that's me.
And I'm Shovel Claus. I am a variety indie platformer speedrunner, kind of. I get around. But I have done 4 GDQ runs now, and something I'm very proud of is that across my 4 runs, across a variety of time slots in different games, both popular and pretty niche, I have $11,000 per hour raised, which is kind of ridiculous to me a little bit. And I've done 30-minute runs and 2-hour runs, so it's the whole spectrum. So I'm pretty proud of that I can raise that much money, and I would hope that I can give you some advice to hopefully raise that much money if you ever submit a run and get it into GDQ. And I've done
For sure.
well over 100 marathon runs at this point, so I'm pretty practiced, I would say.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah. Claus has a lot of running experience, and so can speak from sort of experience and
Yeah.
the heart on that a lot. And while I do have running experience, I also have a lot of hosting experience. So a lot of
Hosts are
sort of
important. We'll learn
behind the
this.
scenes. We'll talk about your
Yeah,
relationship
yeah.
to the host.
I've also done
Foreshadowing.
games committee stuff, so I think I have a pretty good brain on how to
Yeah.
better incentivize your runs, how to get people excited about it, because I kind of have to think about that when doing committee stuff. I'm not anything important, but good enough to have some advice.
Yeah, I'm starting games committee stuff myself, but this one
Yay.
here is much more experienced. So ask it questions that you've got about that. So we're going to start with the flashiest, most exciting part of this panel, and possibly the most important. There are other very, very important things about this panel, but incentives are such a big ticket thing. They really, really matter. They are the thing that's going to make your audience go and feel like they must donate, not just because they want to, but because there's something to, achieve and accomplish and choose. So
Yeah.
we're going to be getting into that.
This is the thing that's easiest to make people excited about.
Yes.
And good runners take advantage of that really effectively, and you will learn how to.
Yes, exactly. And so what should your incentives kind of be like? We have a couple of sort of guidelines up here. Of course, they're just general guidelines, but make sure your incentives are sort of clearly understandable. This is a big thing. Sometimes runners come up with incentives where it's very hard to describe them. It's hard for the audience to understand in a quick sentence by the host, or by the runner, what that incentive actually means. And those incentives are going to do less well because the audience is just not going to understand what they're donating for. So
Yeah.
that is a huge priority.
Do keep in mind your host has a limited amount of time to plug things. Don't make them spend all of that time describing what your incentive is. And you can have weird ideas. Try to make it work with a very small sentence. Something that we did for PVZ was beat the final boss. And it's just a final boss minigame that's unlocked in a completely different menu. But we made a bit out of it, and it ended up working really effectively communicating the idea, as opposed to play the final boss minigame. That's a bit wordy. You'll have to maybe explain to people who don't know what minigames are.
Right, exactly. So putting a spin on your incentive, even if it's a little bit more complicated, to make it sound simpler, is going to be really, really effective in getting more people to donate for it. Same with bid war options. Make sure to keep those really simple, because parsing a bid war can be very difficult.
That is arguably harder than just incentives, yeah.
Exactly. That's very hard to do. But yeah. And of course, easily visible. What that means is your incentive should have a real impact on the run, and whoever donates for it should see that instantly. They should know exactly that what they donated for is happening on screen. So like character costume bid wars, those can be really effective because, you see it on the screen, what you've done. Of course, adding on extra runs or changing the category in a really significant way. These are all good things, but you can also choose categories that only kind of tweak the run, and that can be hard to see your effect. So that's less rewarding for the audience and less motivating for the audience to donate for.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also say stuff, one thing that's really common is stuff like pet the dog incentives. That can be really good, but it's really easy to fall into the trap of, we're going to pet the dog and move on. Play it up, it's really easy to have incentives that are kind of niche or kind of a small part, but you can play it up to maximize their impact.
Yeah, exactly. And then
Speaking of
maximizing donor
maximizing.
agency. So this is maybe more applicable for bid wars.
Yes.
But is more sort of saying that the people who are donating towards your incentives should feel like they are making a difference specifically. So bid wars are, huge for that. I would say custom choice bid wars, like where you can type in, can be some of the highest effect in terms of this particular element. But it's definitely more of a one that's going to be mostly applicable to bid wars and mostly applicable to specific bid wars.
On this kind of note, maximizing donor agency also means that everyone should be able to get excited about it. If it's
Yes.
something that's only going to serve towards part of your community or part of the games community or even just a small part of GDQ's community in general, that's going to make it harder to sell to people, and as a result, might not end up working to maximize how much money you can actually raise with that incentive. Make it something everyone can be excited about. Category upgrades are really good for this because more marathon.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it a better category too. It's really easy to submit a category upgrade that's worse than the category you were running without the upgrade. Please make it a good category.
Yeah, we'll talk about categories later, and we'll get into
but,
that a little bit more there. But yeah, good point.
It is really easy to have incentives that people just can't really get excited about.
Yeah, and then novel. If you can come up with something that nobody's ever seen, not even the community, but that still hits all of these beats and is really exciting, that is going to be huge.
We have
People
a
are
great
going
example.
to really, really want to see that, even within the community. It's
Yeah.
like, of course, there's the classic Super Metroid save kill, but
Right.
there's also, really new things, and those are going to generally get your core community just as excited as the people who don't even, know what the run is.
Yeah, and even then, you can apply kind of worn out ideas like the save kill bid war to different things. The Titanfall 2 run today has a save kill the Martin, and it's just a random robot dude that everyone in the community kind of jokes about, and it's like iconic from some of the old Titanfall 2 speedruns. That's a really effective way to take something that everyone has seen and make it kind of new, kind of flashy.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally, we talked about this a little bit, but you want to be making sure you are in tune with the community and the event. Both are very, very important. Making sure that your incentives are something that your community deeply cares about and also fits really well into the event as a whole. So a really good example of tailoring this is Fatal's events. Fatal's
Yes.
events really love in women. They love incentives that are about women. They also love incentives where you can kind of bring in the rest of the branding. But if you are including incentives that are sort of about women and femmes, then that's going to be even more exciting for that event because that's what people are already there for, and the people in the event are going to get even more excited about that, and that's just going to boost the entire energy of the whole thing.
I'm honestly surprised we didn't hear a bunch of Fatales mentioned, but
Fatales
it's okay.
mentioned. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's kind of the broader overview, and now we're going to get a little bit into the weeds and show you some examples and talk
Yeah.
about them.
So first and foremost is targets and milestones. These are two kind of same side of the same coin, or two sides of a same coin. Look, I'm really good at talking. So targets can include bonus runs or glitch exhibitions, category upgrades, and certain unlocks. There are a lot of ideas that you can fit as a target, but generally it should be a objective or something to aim for. So some good examples are the glitch exhibitions are huge. I feel like if your game is like a particularly kind of messy run and you can make some 10-minute showcase of a bunch of stuff that doesn't really get used in the run, that can be really, really cool for novelty. I will also say you don't have a ton of control over if your run is a target or a milestone. That's kind of games committee things. But milestones generally have a bit more pull because it's the big target. Milestones meaning we have to hit this certain amount of total donation money in order to unlock the incentive. So, if we reach $500,000 total, that will make the incentive unlock. That also means that targets are individual donations. They're the things that people will select on the website and put their money towards. You're getting a 2-for-1 deal if you have a milestone and a target open at the same time. So use that to your advantage.
If you happen to be in a situation where
It's
you
pretty
are
rare.
the run that has a target or you are the run that has a milestone, Anarchy, who is sitting back there, did a really excellent job of this during the Wolfenstein 2
Yes.
run, which we're going to talk about even more in depth
Yeah,
in
yeah.
just a minute. But yeah, what Claus is kind of saying is you're not games committee, presumably. If you are games committee, of course, think about this. But if you're in the situation where you are a target, you have a target for your run, and there's a milestone for a game coming up later, you
Use
can be
that.
excited about that during the run as a runner. You can be like, if you donate to my incentive to do this, amazing trick at the end of the run, then you might also be able to unlock this bonus game later in the day.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to sort of just kind of loop these things in and be cohesive.
Yeah, we'll also talk about that more in the mindset because that is a huge thing with mindset is get excited, but subtle foreshadowing.
Exactly. Yep, we're going to have to wait for it to load, but we're going to talk a little bit about the Wolfenstein 2 run that just happened on Monday. Yeah, Anarchy, you were so good at this that we were going to talk about you.
Yeah. She
Yeah.
just hit a.
So first we're going to just
Mic
watch
out.
this clip, and then we're going to talk about what happened in it and what I think made it such a good example of both talking about targets, talking about milestones, and really excelling at sort of being a runner in the position of having these things in your run and around your run.
We should have explained it while the clip was loading.
What was
Nice.
that? Like,
Can we,
hate
like,
bad guys,
Yeah,
right?
we hate bad guys.
We hate bad guys. Woo, yeah,
We
yeah.
hate
Like,
go.
that's
Okay,
the
yeah.
whole reason we got the milestone is because we don't like bad guys. What are we doing right
Bad
now?
guys are the worst.
They are so the worst.
Speaking
They're
of the
terrible.
milestone, like Anarchy, I know like there was like some ideas that we had about, maybe
Yeah,
an
so
even better editing, right? Like,
yeah, for this, stomping out of fascism, we can do that more than once if you didn't know. If we, I think at
Was
what
it
at
three-
15K, 20K, and when we meet the blueprints incentive, we will do it again.
Yes.
I like that. I
Yeah,
like
we'll do it a
that.
total of
So
3
we-
A
times.
2-for-1 incentive.
So if you
yeah,
like,
this
chat,
is
if we
literally
lock it in-
value right now.
If we
Correct.
lock it in,
Yeah, we can lock it in, chat.
we can.
So yeah, of course, Anarchy knows what she did, but basically they took the blueprints incentive that was open then and at the time had about $11,000 in it and said if we get to 15K, 20K, and 25K on that incentive during this run, then we'll be able to do something bonus in this run. So that's basically making an extra target out of a target that exists, and then that was comboed with getting the good ending as a milestone, which already happened by this time, but that's a good example of a really fun milestone that they designed during that run. By the way, getting the good ending means killing the worst guy.
Yeah,
Mungo.
just imagine the worst guy in your
Just
mind
imagine
right
the
now.
worst guy
That
in
was
your
it.
mind. Yeah.
But I want to say being adaptable as a runner is a great trait to have,
Mm-hmm.
thinking on your feet and thinking, hey, how can I use what I'm already doing to push more? So Anarchy had already hit this milestone.
Yeah.
So you're already doing it once. We're going to use that to do it again for another incentive. And if we hit this incentive, hey, boom. It's a really effective way to kind of keep that milestone idea of a 2-for-1 combo going without changing anything about your run or having committee do more work. That was all just the runner and commentator.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, this is both an example that's a little bit specific to mainline and a little bit high level. Most of the time, you're not going to be making up targets on the fly, but it's just a really good example of at the highest level what you can do, how you can be creative,
Yeah.
and really keep these things in mind. And
It's
also
applying
just
the
the
concept.
framing of getting the good ending is a really fun way to do this. Really, like this thing that we actually can't quite talk about. I think it was just a good example. All
that's another thing is it's kind of going back to the PVZ beat the final boss idea is making sure the idea is communicated clearly and in line with the event while having a tangible thing that everyone can agree with, like getting the good ending in the game where you're killing fascists. You can do some guesswork there.
Yeah.
And
But it's fun. It gets the audience to want to know
Yeah.
what's going on.
it's really easily to understand.
Yeah, totally. And then Bid Wars, yay!
Yay.
Bid Wars, I would say, are very interesting. They're very finicky.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, because they're less of this big thing that you can get the audience to understand right away, and more a lot of these little options. But that does come with the opportunity for the audience to feel very involved with Bid Wars, and they can feel very personal, very fun, and they can go farther beyond the standard things that you might think of. Last night we had a Kingdom Hearts 2 bid war between two categories, so you can do things like that. You can also do costume bid wars. You can kind of do whatever you can think of.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind about bid wars is that, generally speaking, bid wars will have a less impact on the run. That's not always true. Category bid wars are pretty big in terms of impact, but don't. I would say focus on targets first and bid wars second.
Yeah.
You can do both. Bid wars, I think, get a little bit overvalued by most runners, I would say, where you should aim for a really good target. It's easier to get people to get excited about a bid target. The thing about bid wars that makes it kind of finicky is that you need to have natural competition. You can't rely on just having a goal. So it comes down to the donator's ability to make that competition happening. The nice thing is that you as a runner can influence that a lot by pushing people to donate for one option or the other. Always pick the one in last place.
Always.
Not always,
Yeah,
but
usually.
usually it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But that natural competition doesn't always happen, especially if your game is more niche. For stuff like Super Metroid, it's pretty easy to get people excited about save or kill, but it's not always doable. So I would say focus targets first, bid war second.
Yeah, and another thing about bid wars is that they often end at the beginning of the run,
Yes.
which is a little bit harder to push for as both a host and also as a runner. You don't get the influence over that unless, of course, you're a very famous person. You can post on social media or whatever. But otherwise, you really don't have a whole lot of influence over what the public decides to do with your bid war if it ends early. So if you can find a bid war that ends late or goes continuous, you have much more control over how that bid war goes.
I want to mention continuous bid wars because that is huge, huge, huge.
We're going to see an example of that.
We'll see an
Yeah.
example. But if you can have the bid war rolling the entire time, it makes the competition because you have an influence over how that bid war is going to act. So if you have any ability to change a costume mid-run or change a costume mid-run.
It's mostly costume mid-run.
Costume mid-run.
Yeah, mostly.
Or like characters mid-run.
Yeah, that
that
too.
one's a little bit harder, but doable in some cases.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
That is going to be really, really easy for you to get involved with and push people to donate. I have done this before, and it raised like $400 in an event that raised like, what, 4K?
Yeah.
5K? I forget how much No
forget.
Glitches raised last
Yeah, I think it was about 5K.
time.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
It was also like a 40-minute run, so.
And yeah, we're going to see an example of what I did at Fatales last year with PVZ, and that was the highest grossing bid war in that marathon by a lot. And
Yeah.
it was because of its continuous aspect, and also just because PVZ is a popular game.
Yeah.
But,
It does help when you have popular games to
it sure does.
look at.
But, you can make stuff out of anything.
But yeah, this was
But I
the
actually
Plants vs.
did math,
Zombies
which we all know is
futuristic,
not my strongest
versus
suit.
mustaches.
My calculations, if I did this correctly, is that $146.40 stands between Glasses getting in the lead right now. If I've done
Oh, that
math
is
correctly.
nothing, chat. You can
So-
absolutely do that. Please.
And feel free to correct my math because I could be dead wrong. So, oh yeah, well I'm talking futuristic Glasses is in the lead.
Let's go. There.
Just like that.
See,
Now that's what I'm talking about.
That is what I am talking about, chat. You are beautiful. Thank you for switching up that bid war. And you can do it again. You can totally do it again. I believe in you, chat.
That's what I'm saying. Let's go.
Let's go. We also do have Wave 9.
So yep, that's the example of sort of a continuous bid war. Again, this is a bit of a rare type of bid war, but these and also bid wars that end at the end of the run are going to have the most competition and the most influence from the runner and the host on how to sort of push for that. As you can see there, both myself and JPEG, who was the excellent host for this
Excellent
game, were basically encouraging chat to switch it up. It wasn't really about favoring one option or the other. It was more just saying, I want to see that bid war flip as much as possible. I want to hit that key. I want to make sure that that costume switches.
Though
Yeah.
it is really easy to pick favorites and pick hate and unleash your hater energy. I did that for the run I just mentioned that I did that raised a fair amount of money. Because the entire time, so one of the costumes I had was just a white circle or a white square is a bit. Half the run was as that white square because I was just like, this sucks. You're making me suffer. And then some people bailed me out. Some people made me hate my life during the entirety of that run. But it generated a ton of money and the competition came really easily.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a really good example of you can use tone to your advantage as well.
Yes.
I was really excited about this. I really believed in chat, wanted chat to do that. You're using negativity in sort of the same way.
I do that pretty well, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever your personality is, leverage that and make sure that you're using it still as a way to promote the charity, to promote the run, and get the crowd excited. Even if you're saying, this sucks, chat,
Yeah.
please bail me out.
Yeah.
That'll still motivate them to help you and to be excited about
Yeah,
it.
just have some tact with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be too far either way, but I think being adaptable is very good. Also,
Yeah.
I realize now this is like hero story, dark story dynamic.
Oh,
going on.
yeah, a little bit.
I'm like evil between us, and she's like excellent between us.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Let's see whether it'll let me. Oh,
all right.
Yeah, hooray.
Time for categories. Yay! There's a lot of stuff that goes into picking a marathon-ready category. Next slide, please. Thank you. So generally, I would say you should consider, first and foremost, time. It's not really justified to have 3 hours of a game that very few people really know of or have heard about. Sorry, it's the truth. If you're a really, really, really good runner, you can maybe make it work, but you'll have to work your way up if you haven't done that before. Though you can make this work through some tricks I think we'll talk about in the next slide.
We sure
I don't
will.
remember. Secondly, it should be very clearly defined. Any percent is really understandable. 100% super understandable. Something like Evolution's Trade Alt Showdown race is a little bit of a mouthful. Make sure that people understand that going into the run. Thankfully, people love Pokemon, so I think most people understand what evolution means. But having some novelty to it can help in that way, but just make sure that people can really easily understand it. If Games Committee has to go to speedrun.com to look at the rules tab of what your run is, that is a really bad sign that you have not effectively described what your category is.
Yep, generally true. The only real exception to that I can think of is if you name your category something really fun and
That's true.
and that people want to look at and figure out what the heck that means.
Yeah. You can have a lot of fun with categories. You don't have to just do any percent, as it turns out.
Absolutely. And
yeah.
There's a whole hotfix show for that, by the way. Shouting out Quacksilver's Make Your Own Victory.
So true.
You can watch those runs to sort of get a better idea of how to tailor your
Honestly,
categories.
yeah. And also that hotfix show is just actually very good.
Very
Quacksilver is an excellent host.
Yes, Quacksilver is great.
We'll be hosting Deltarune at the finale, so you know, it's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
And lastly, I would say, your category should not be the main draw. Everyone is excited about any percent for most, or your category should be the main draw. Everyone is excited about any percent for the most part, but having that novelty will bring people in more easy. The game alone can do a lot of heavy lifting. It should not do all of it. So, for example, I would say today's bonus game, actually, Super Mario Odyssey 2-player any percent. That is a different way to do any percent that people are going to get more excited about because the category is a unique way to watch a game that I think most people agree is a fantastic speedrun. And the novelty is what I would argue is making it the bonus game today. It's that push and pull of, I've never seen this before, but I have seen this before. I know what this is, but I really don't.
Right, exactly. 2 players, 1 controller, Zelda Breath of the Wild
That's
from last
also
event.
great.
Another great example of, yeah, that was probably a bonus game just because.
I think it was.
Yeah, it was a bonus game, but it was probably just a bonus game because of that category.
Yeah.
So you don't always need to do this. You know, any percent's a classic. 100% is great if it's short. You know, it's not something you need to do necessarily, but it is something you'll want to keep in mind for enticing people to watch the run. The real most important thing is time and is the quality of the category itself.
Yeah, if your run is like an hour, but like 30 minutes of it is cutscenes, make a cutscene skip mod. Hello?
Yeah, exactly. And then, this is just a little bit about how to modify your categories. So sort of the most straightforward one, if you've got a long run, figure out how to make it less long. Take out sections. Isolate sections. I'm commentating a Marvel Spider-Man 2 run later in this marathon, which is a fusion of all collectibles and all bosses. It is not the whole any percent experience, but it takes down the most interesting stuff and shoves it in there. So that's a really good example of something that you can do to make your category both just trim the fat, but also work better in the time frame that you have.
Yeah. I would also say making runs shorter generally will also just help viewers be engaged. Longer runs tend to also generate more money, but not everyone can do a super long run and generate a lot of money. Short runs will have a very rapid burst of donations for the people excited about that game in specific. And short categories of really popular games can help with that a ton.
Yeah, we probably will say that with Cuphead today in just a little
Cuphead
while.
is going to get a lot of money, and I already know that Cuphead is a huge game. People love
Yes,
that game.
absolutely huge. So it really depends on what your game is, what you think might be the optimal play here. And of course, most marathons will let you submit multiple categories. So make sure that your spread of categories is diverse so that the Games Committee can pick between which ones they think they're going to need for the marathon or are going to make the best showcase.
Yeah. Additionally, you can make category bid wars. This is a really easy one for a pretty decent handful of games. Stuff with alternative stories or alternate win conditions. Sonic is an excellent example of this. The story bid war is kind of a classic. I would argue. We have Sonic Heroes later this event doing Team Chaotix versus Team Sonic. That has historically done really well for a Sonic run, where you're going to influence the run just like that, just by putting $5 into a bid war option. And those runs are very, very different if you haven't seen Sonic Heroes. One is basically objective-oriented, find my pages, Slenderman style. The other is get to the end of the stage, Sonic, very classic Sonic.
You know, I'm hosting right before that run, so I'm going to call it Slenderman style now.
I'm so sorry.
to influence that bid war. But anyways.
And Satan's kicked off of the host mic.
Yeah,
All
awesome.
my fault.
Let's go. Only on event 2. Anyway. Another thing that we've already talked about, gimmicks. Gimmicks are super fun. We've talked about a couple. I'll bring up one more. For Multithon last year, Selkith Mind and I did a speed run where she speed ran making a grilled cheese in The Sims 4, and I speed ran making a grilled cheese in real life.
Yep.
And everybody got super, super excited about that. It was a race. It was tons and tons of fun. So if you can think outside of the box, do something really cool and interesting, maybe that nobody in your community has ever thought of before, and as long as it makes for an entertaining marathon race that people are going to want to click on, then there you go.
I will say some things are way better suited for online marathons. I don't know if they
yes.
want to bring an oven onto stage.
Yeah.
Maybe we get there. Maybe
So
we
think
have
about your setting. Yeah.
Maybe we have the stage kitchen in the future. That'll be really cool.
Stage kitchen.
But-
so true. So real.
But gimmicks are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You also have a lot of creativity in that very small space, I would say. You can do anything. Modded runs also do excellent. I don't think we have that many modded runs this event.
Quake 64.
Quake 64. That is true. But a bunch of modded categories exist. We have a whole hotfix show for modded and community created content. Shout out Parallel Universe, the goats.
Yes.
That's my favorite show. I'm sorry.
Dr. Robotnik's Ring Racers.
That's also true. That's an entire fan game.
Yeah,
And
fan games
so-
can also be, if they're in the right place and time,
Yeah,
a
fan
really
games
nice
are
choice.
really good. One of my favorite GDQ runs of all time is this like marble roller Sonic racing game. I forget the name, but I still remember it to this day. It was back in like 2017.
Yeah, and that's not quite into the realm of gimmick. It's more into the realm of game choice.
Yeah.
But if you have, if you have modifications to your game,
It's kind of a
that can
gimmicky
help
game
too.
choice, which helps.
Yeah. And then finally, which we just talked about a little bit, but we're going to talk about more now, multiplayer submissions. Multiplayer submissions can be really successful. They can be the best way to do what you want to do, but they can also be very difficult to make successful. So we're going to talk about some things about them.
Yeah. So first and foremost are races. They're the two genres, co-op and race. The main things to consider are: do your runners have good times? Not necessarily good times, but similar times. Good times in comparison to each other. Would the category itself make a good race? Stuff with a lot of RNG is not really going to be the best unless it is a lot of RNG all the time that can swing really hard back and forth. If it does happen a lot, can it kill a run outright? That's also just a general submission thing to keep in mind. But that would make a really bad race if someone has run-ending RNG and can't finish. That is a nightmare scenario. I have dreamt of these scenarios in real life, actually. And
No
then,
doubt it.
are there any super difficult tricks that could end the run as well? It doesn't necessarily have to be RNG, but the skill ceiling is a very tight window for making a good race in your game. Because if it's too high, that could mean that the run could just DNF and the race aspect of it is kind of gone. Or if it's too low, it can make an uninteresting or boring race. And then lastly, how many players would be best for it? We actually got into a little bit of a discussion while making this. I personally think that more racers generally makes runs harder to follow.
Well, I agree with that.
One or two is kind of my one or two extra players is kind of my sweet spot. When it gets up to 4, that's when I'm kind of scared. It has to be a really popular game in those cases, I would say.
Yeah.
Or a really tight race just all the way.
I would say a good example of that was NES Collection from last
Yes,
year.
yes.
That was a really easy to follow race with a bunch of popular games
Yeah.
and people who had good rapport. So you really want to make sure that your game is easy to see, who's in the lead, easy to understand. And that goes for any level of amount of racers.
Yeah.
Of course, it compounds when you have more racers, but you do want to be able to tell who's in the lead at every given time fairly easily. If you have
Yes.
a game that's very hard to tell that, then that's going to make for a worse race.
Yeah. I would also say, as a racer, you should have really good banter. That's something that is more commentary stuff, and we'll talk about it a lot more later. But it's especially true of races that the more into it, the more you're at each other's throats, kind of, the easier it is to follow the rivalry and have fun with it. Of course, don't hate each other too much, but it makes an interesting dynamic that's really fun for people watching because there aren't that many races in any given GDQ. The more fun you have with it, the better your outcome will be.
Also, if you want to watch a marathon for this to get inspiration, Multithon, I would say
Yes.
in particular, is where you should go to see lots of really cool ideas for races. We're going to be talking about co-ops as well. So if you want to find some inspiration for how to do good submissions here, that's I think, a good
they
place
have
to go.
a lot of very excellent submissions all the time.
Yeah. All right, co-ops. So considerations for co-ops are somewhat similar to races in the sense that you need good banter, good rapport, and it's easy to understand what's happening on both screens at the same time, but you don't have to consider other things necessarily as much as like really similar skill level. But there are some co-op specific things that really change. For me, something that I don't see talked about a lot and I really want to talk about here is it obvious how the co-op works in your game?
Yes.
Going back to Super Mario Odyssey later today is going to be very obvious how the co-op works in your game. Cappy is going to be moving separately from Mario. They're going to be
Yeah.
working together. That's a really good co-op submission. Whereas some other co-op submissions, it can be very difficult to tell how the two players are interacting and how they are favoring each other and benefiting each other in the game.
Yep. I would also generally say that co-op. I had it in my head and then it is gone. Oops,
Uh-oh.
it's disappeared.
We can do co-op panel, and I can try to
Oh, okay. Wait,
get what
wait,
you were
hold
thinking
on,
of.
wait.
I have no idea what you were thinking of, though.
Autism to autism communication real fast.
I was gonna say they don't know, but they know. They know.
They know.
Anyway,
You are dressed as Amy Rose right
that's
now.
right.
It's fine.
Also, purposeful, of course. Another quick thing, just to sneak in there, you can use your own personality to your advantage. I like to cosplay sometimes. I like to do
Yeah.
funny face paint, whatever.
And I
it
like
gets
to
people
make
more
jokes that
engaged.
are too risky for GDQs.
Yeah,
sometimes.
we don't need to get into that.
Okay.
but
you
anyways.
can watch PVZ if you care.
Anyways,
I haven't remembered what I was gonna say at all. Actually.
great.
Awesome.
Good co-op we're doing.
Yeah, no,
so this
this
is an
sucks.
example
GDQ
of
mercy kill
bad.
us.
Yeah, don't do what we're doing.
This is
Unless it's funny, in which case,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
that's fine then. Too much crosstalk.
Oh,
Practice.
yes.
Practice. If you're doing co-op and also racing can do this too, but it's more likely that races are going to have less of this problem. But co-op, sometimes you really need to communicate with your co-op partner. That can be really distracting for an audience if it's done too much or in a way that doesn't let the audience follow what's going on or doesn't let the host talk. Again, we'll be talking more about hosting later, but that is super, super important. You want to make sure you practice so that you can communicate quickly, effectively, and only where it really matters a lot of the time.
Oh, I remembered. Something Satan said earlier is that for races, you generally want to have people within a pretty tight margin. For co-op, that doesn't super apply, but you can absolutely have one person carry the other. It does not matter that you can have like first place and like 1,000th place co-op. As long as it's fun, no one cares or will notice.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of freedom with co-op, I would say. And in that regard, co-op can be really, really successful if you can pull off the dynamic that you and your partner have. So nailing down the kind of dynamic that you have, and this should come naturally, by the way. Don't force a dynamic that you haven't really had. Preferably, you're co-oping with your friend. You kind of know how each other are going to interact. Put that to your advantage. use it a lot. It's really easy, actually, to co-op with a friend because you already know each other really well.
Yeah.
Just bring that on stage, and as long as you guys are fun together, you will have fun on stage, and people will be super into it.
Yeah, and this is something we'll talk about with commentary. But yes,
Yeah.
Talk to people you like on stage. Bring people you like on
Please.
stage. That is so important because energy is just going to be infectious towards the audience, towards everyone.
I have a
And
lot of
then-
opinions on that we'll get into later.
we will get into later. And then finally, one more point is that games that are famously co-op tend to do better. So,
Yeah.
for example, all the Lego games, they are very famously co-op. Everybody's played them with their brother, sister, mom, friend, whatever. So making those runs co-op, for example, Lego The Hobbit last event, I think
Yes.
did really well because it was a co-op run with, by the way, a husband and wife pair, which
Yeah,
was
yeah,
really
that's even
nice
better.
to see. So, partners can also be good for co-op stuff and races if you're healthy.
If you're healthy.
But anyways, yeah, so of course they don't have to be this way, but games to submit co-op, you should consider whether that's a well-known mode and whether it's easy to follow and understand how it works. All right. Yeah, unconventional format. So, races, co-ops, solo runs. Everybody knows how those work. You can do other stuff. I know Claus is very passionate about bingo, and I'm very passionate about randomizers.
Yeah.
There are two very different ways to play games and sort of show them off, but they require very special considerations. We're not going to get them too deep into them today. There was a whole panel about bingo from last event that
That's
you can
true.
go
I
watch
did
on
that.
YouTube right
Wow.
now, or after the panel, whenever and wherever you're watching this.
Yeah.
So if you want to know more about that, there's that. I am absolutely certain that there's been somebody talking about randomizers at some point at this event.
There
as well.
has to have been a
It has
randomizer
to.
panel, and if not, we're making it next event.
Yeah, exactly. If
Um,
not, that will be us next event, and we will be back.
But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I will say, for a lot of these, I don't try to force them. This is me personally. I am kind of a relay race hater. I'm not gonna lie, because not every game is good for relays. I think one example of games that are really excellent for relays is the Sonic series, because most of them have different stories or different characters to play as. That, I think, is kind of the pinnacle, is that each player in the relay has a role. But you can make it work really easily. I've seen the Marvel Spider-Man 2 submission that we talked about some earlier. They make that relay race work really effectively. And also, we had Nintendo Puzzle Collection, I think, yesterday, or has
Yeah.
it happened? Yeah, I forget.
I don't remember.
The time is fake at GDQs anyways. But Nintendo Puzzle Collection is just like 3 different puzzle games back to back to back, and it's a relay race between 2 teams. That is super fun. And
Oh,
of
that's
course,
on Thursday, I think.
Thursday.
Or maybe Friday. I don't know.
And of course, the Super Mario Maker relays are always a banger, and that is entirely because that community is kind of nuts with it. They do wild stuff all the time. But relay races take a lot of special consideration in that regard, I think. And this is me personally, but not everyone will work. You can have fun with it, but
Yeah.
me personally, I'm not going to be a
It's
fan
a
of it.
similar thing with regular races, but multiplied 10,000.
Kinda, yeah.
Basically, you have to have a group of people that works well together, good coordination between everyone, a plan for commentary. It's
Yep.
it's very difficult. And
It is
similar
hard.
stuff for randomizers and bingo. You really have to think hard about what you're doing.
Yeah.
We can take more questions about that at the end
Yeah.
if you have more curiosities. And then,
Alright.
yeah, mindset. There should be a photo there. Don't know why there's not. Oops.
What was the photo there, anyways?
It was of somebody. I just went through the photos album and picked people.
Oh, okay, right,
Yeah.
right.
We'll see more people later.
I'm sure it was someone
Imagine
at the
that there's a
host desk or
person.
something.
Yeah, maybe imagine yourself there.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, you have a good mindset. That's so
Wow.
cool. Or at least you will after this panel.
True.
All right,
Yeah.
charity marathon mindset. So this is, I think, a really important and underrated thing that people don't talk about very much. Your mindset about this charity run that you're doing is going to matter so much for how people feel when they watch and whether they want to donate. And there's a lot that goes into that. It's definitely a little bit more complicated and more personal than the other things we'll be talking about in this panel. But we have some overall guidelines. Positive vibes mostly just means be positive about it. If things go wrong, still be excited that you're there, still be happy that you're raising money for charity, still be happy that the event accepted you, still be excited to be there with your lovely host or your lovely commentators. Find a silver lining when you can, even when the run's not going perfectly.
Yeah, I will say, please don't down talk yourself. You put in the work to get your run on stage. You deserve to be on stage, even if you didn't get accepted. I genuinely believe that every run can have its shot as long as it's not some 10-hour meme category. But every run has an honest, genuine shot. If you are negative about yourself during the run, that will it's a huge vibe killer, and vibes are everything in a charity marathon. You can make mistakes. One thing I like to do is laugh off my mistakes very like a lot, or joke about the mistake and be like kind of turn it into its own bit. It kind of helps with my personality. You might have to find a different balance, but being able to take mistakes and turn them into a fun joke or a fun part of the run is really valuable. And not getting bogged down in the details is super, super important for that. I hear a lot of runners, their first time or whatever, will not do not have a fantastic run executionally, but will be amazing on commentary until something goes wrong, and then that's when the
Yeah,
tone
it just
kind
kind
of
of crumbles their
Yeah.
their self-image and positivity
Yeah.
about the run. Yeah.
And
And you have to be sort of diligent in making sure
Yeah.
that even if your run doesn't go well, you're still in it. And I'll say from personal experience, I never PB during marathons. I am
no, it's
very
super
slow
rare.
during marathons
Yeah.
compared to when I am in practice. I practice so that my consistency gets better, so my times get average lower. But I don't think I've almost ever PB'd in a marathon.
I think I've done it like once.
Yeah, and that's fine. There is literally nothing wrong with that. It is about showing off, first of all, that you're generally able to play the game fast, but
Yeah.
second of all, really the game as a fast game and making it a tool for the marathon and for the charity.
I think at the end of the day, it's really, really cool that you can raise a bunch of money for charity by playing a video game kind of fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you should feel that way too.
Yeah, and that leads into our next point. Get excited. So this is
Yes,
a little bit
please.
different from positive vibes, in my opinion. It's more about sort of what are you targeting in your mind to make the audience excited about because you're excited about it. So,
Yeah.
of course, your own incentives, but also upcoming incentives can be really useful for this. Upcoming runs, things in your run, like tricks in your run that you think are really cool, characters in your run that you love, moments in your run that you care about, the game itself, and your relationship to it, your relationship to the people on your couch. Those are all, really important things to sort of identify and sort of project while you are on stage.
Yeah, one thing that people, I think is kind of an Achilles heel is that people won't look at the runs on the schedule that are around them. It is really effective if you can watch the run or two before yours, bring bits back from those runs, keep the train rolling. There's a continuity to this, and people don't super consider that because they're just thinking about how can I make my run as good as possible. But there's incentives all around you for those with the eyes to see. You have to consider everything, big picture across the entire day that your run is. You don't necessarily have to watch every second, every minute of every run before yours, but having a good mind and keeping in mind what people are doing in the runs before yours can make it really easy. Actually, it kind of reduces your your research and your job to make people excited. And being excited in general is like a life hack. Honestly,
Yeah.
I laugh so loud every time I'm on stage. I have to have my levels adjusted for specifically when I laugh.
This is about half its own jokes.
Half of
but
it is my own jokes.
yes,
This is
yes,
so true.
Yes.
I am the funniest guy ever. Oh my god. But
Can you believe I have to stare at the stage with this one sometimes? It's
okay,
awful.
you invited me on PVZ comms. Not my fault.
You asked me.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Well, my bad. But yeah, just having that energy is going to do a great amount for the audience, both in the room and online.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about a marathon like a story. You're a chapter in that story.
Yeah.
And of course, chapters can be really memorable by themselves, but they're not really the highlight. It is all about the overall narrative that you're kind of stringing together throughout the marathon.
Yeah.
That's a very high level thing, but it's something you can be thinking about as a runner. How do I fit into the overall story of this marathon?
Yeah, I got really good at that around like my 30th marathon run is when I started kind of connecting the puzzle pieces and being like, oh, hey, wait, I have so many tricks up my sleeve. That was 30 runs deep in a bunch of smaller events.
It takes a lot of practice to get good at this.
Yeah, you will not get there immediately, but you're getting a head start already if you haven't done marathon runs before. If you have, now you know, and that kind of concept is really important to just keep in mind the entire time you're leading up to your run and in your run.
Yeah, and of course, by the way, just as a small aside, all of this is really useful for submission videos as well.
True.
If you can have this kind of attitude during your submission video, it will make the committee more excited about your
Yeah,
run.
100%.
All right, host. So, I love hosting.
You're gonna take this slide.
Yes, it's so important to the overall marathon ecosystem is your host. They are the one who is speaking for the audience and to the audience at once. So if you are not giving time to your host, now of course the host job is to find times to come into the run, but if you can have a good rapport with your host, if you are able to talk to your host, if you're able to make space for them, then the audience is going to have made space for them too, which is so important. The audience is going to feel like they are in the run alongside with you because the host is their voice. The host is also the one telling them, everything that's going on. So they're just super important. So get to know your host. You want to know their name.
Please.
If you can, make sure you know how to pronounce it so that when you throw to them, you can say, hey, Bobby Blackwolf,
Yeah.
come on in, read some donations for me.
If you have a
that
friend
kind of
that
thing.
is hosting, ask to be on the run with them. Like,
Yeah.
having someone who you are best friends with on host stand makes such a huge difference.
It really does. Yeah, Quake 64.
Quake 64
Livey
had
and I
this.
are very close, and we mutually requested that run. And a lot of things happened at the beginning of that
It
run.
was-
You can
it
go
was
back and see
interesting.
that
It was
VOD.
fun.
But we were able to basically mentally communicate without having to do too much
Yeah.
actual communication, and that was the reason that incentive went as well as it did.
Yeah.
So that can be really valuable if you have the space, but of course if you don't, no worries. But yeah, you want to make sure that you give them information before the run as to when in your run are good spots for them to talk. Of course, not every run's going to be like this. I run Peggle. It basically doesn't have those in particular. You kind of just have to find them as you go. But a lot of games have auto-scrollers. A lot of games have sections where you're doing the same thing you've done before. A re-boss fight. Things like that you can identify. You can put, vague timestamps, basically say around 52 minutes I'm going to be doing this. It's a really good time for you to talk for about 2 minutes. And then your host is going to get a good idea of not only when they can jump in, but also how much they can fit into that space if they know how long their sort of break is going to be.
One thing I will say is when inviting your host to speak during a certain time, when you say, we have time for donations, be more than just, we have time for donations. The more you invite your host in, the more welcome you make them feel. I'm sorry, I sound like a service worker manager. My bad. But it's true. The more they are involved, the much easier it is for them to do their job, to hype up the crowd, get involved, and get people excited. I think, generally speaking, the host is going to be your best tool for getting donations easily. Your game can have an incentive. The next run can have an incentive. The host is going to push those. The host is who you need to focus on the most, I would argue.
Yeah, I agree. Biased, but I agree.
Biased, but even as just a runner, someone who has never done hosting in my life yet, first shift next month. Woo.
Woo!
So even as someone who hasn't done it before, putting that attention into your host and making them feel like they can come into your jokes, your bits, and make a joke alongside the audience, super, super helpful for making everyone watching feel welcome to donate and get excited.
And at the absolute minimum, even if you don't have the time to really connect with your host, whatever that is, just thank them. Just
Yeah.
be like, thank you for that wonderful donation. And that's just going to make them feel better. It's going to make everybody around you feel better. And always know how to address them. Always know their name and pronouns. Always know how to pronounce those name and pronouns. That is very, very important.
And if you make a mistake, quickly just sorry, excuse me, whatever, correct yourself, move on.
Yeah.
I will also say, please interact with the donations. It's really easy to hear donations and then immediately go back to the game. To bounce off the energy of the people donating. They're sending you their money. Or not you, but the charity, your money.
Yeah.
Their money.
A really good example of this, Roller Coaster Tycoon. There was
Excellent
a
example.
there was a pop versus soda impromptu bid war that just kind of came up naturally throughout the run, and the runner and the commentators were just like, warring back and forth about this, and
Yeah.
it made the audience really excited to chip in their own, opinion on it and further that dynamic. So if you can do that, then you're going to succeed much better.
Yeah.
Also, if you want to know more about hosting, there are 2 different panels this event on
That's true.
hosting. They aren't happening yet, but they will be happening soon. So check the activity schedule for that if you're interested about hosting, not only just being a host, but also how hosting works. It's
Yeah.
really cool. You can also ask questions later, but this is more about being a runner or maybe even being on couch and sort of, making that space for hosts.
I will. The last thing I will say is that the vast majority of really popular GDQ jokes, like I'm pretty sure Orb, Lamp, so on and so forth, Ratals, I think was a donation comment.
Yeah, yes, Chef was popular. I'm not sure it's really going anymore, but
Yes Chef is kind of old school.
Yeah, a
I say
little
that
bit.
it was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But even Yes Chef was like a donation bit. Almost all of the major jokes of GDQ runs come from donation comments.
yes.
You should capitalize on that.
Yeah. And as much as we hate to admit it, sometimes those jokes are really well beloved, even if you've
Yeah.
heard them a million times.
I am sick and tired of hearing Orb. I will yell it every time.
Exactly. No, you just got to be there with them. And honestly, in the moment, if you're yelling Orb, you're feeling better about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if outside of it you think Orb, again, not the 1000th time. So yeah, just be excited. Be in it.
I mean, one of the most popular GDQ memes outside of the GDQ space is "Greetings from Germany," which is literally just a dude being like a guy.
Yeah, no, amazing stuff. And now our donation servers run through Germany, so all the donations do come from Germany now.
Oh my gosh.
Fun fact. Commentary.
Oh my
Yay, it's
God.
Quacksilver.
Yay.
We were
Hi,
talking about
Quacksilver.
Quack earlier. Commentary is super important, kind of the lifeblood of your run. We've been talking about it sparsely here and there, but we're going to focus on it now.
So, compelling commentary can be really difficult, especially for games that are really, really technical. But the first step is having someone on couch that can do it well. You can do solo comms. I personally would generally avoid it. You can just invite a friend up there, and instantly people will have more fun. So, first and foremost, how personally do you know your commentary? Do you get along already? Is it just someone who plays the game and is knowledgeable about the game? You need to, in that case, you'll have to divvy up the work a little bit, and you won't necessarily immediately have that click. For example, for my first ever GDQ run of Cult of the Lamb, I literally just invited 2 other players of the game, 2 other runners of the game, and was like, okay, we're gonna run this game together for like 5 weeks. We're gonna every few days we're gonna do a practice run. We're gonna make sure that we know each other really well. We're gonna talk before, after, about both what we did right and also just get to know each other. And that run ended up absolutely crushing it. And it was such a great vibe the entire time. We just had a fantastic time making jokes during the run and kind of gassing each other up. It was awesome. Do that with your commentary, especially if you don't know them super well. If you have friends on your couch, you can probably do 1 or 2 and be like, yeah, this is good enough. But if you don't know them, get to know them, please. Oh my God, it helps so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes the best commentator is not the best runner of your game.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Almost always, I would say.
Actually, yeah. Usually
unless-
top runners are just really locked in, and
Yeah.
people who are not top runners tend to do it for the love of the game a little
Yeah.
bit more. It's just a trend. It's not a rule, but
Yeah,
it
there
does
are
happen.
definitely some top runners that just have a Riz off the charts. It's
Oh,
kind of
it
incredible.
happens. Yeah.
But please don't feel obligated under most circumstances to pick community members. You can go outside of the community.
Yes.
Just because your game got in does not necessarily mean that you need to bring someone from the game onto the couch. I would say generally it's a good idea because it represents the community. You want to do that just from a mindset angle. but you don't necessarily have to do it if, for example, you don't think the one of the other runners that you have will do a great job on commentary. You want them to be great, not just good, not just okay, great.
Yeah, and it also really depends on your community itself. Be mindful. The best possible option is people who have run your game and are good commentary.
Yep.
But your second choice, good commentary. It
Yeah.
should not be people who run your game.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And then, your commentary has to understand the event. This is
Please.
huge. Of course, we'll come with practicing with your commentary, as Claus was talking about, but they really have to understand what the event itself is, what its goals are, and how you should modify your commentary to be about that.
You can show them this panel if you ever get in.
Yeah, so cool. But going back to another marathon I talked about before, Multithon. Multithon has a really big focus on togetherness. It has a big focus on the community and doing things, positively together. And I think that can be a really fun thing for commentary to focus on, but they have to kind of know that that's what Multithon's about
Yeah.
to start tailoring their commentary towards being like, and, we're having these two characters work together on screen. This is so Multithon.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
so us, right?
Every event has their unique identity. Games Done Quick is kind of the umbrella where everything conjoins and a lot of things branch off of that. But even GDQ has its own culture, and understanding that culture in your commentary is really, really important.
Roller Coaster Tycoon, I'm bringing it up again. It was so good.
Yeah.
Trans Rights Coaster, just such a good understanding of what GDQ
Yeah.
is doing and wants to do, and bringing it into the game and making it part of the game itself makes it feel so cohesive with the event.
Yeah.
Of course, this isn't specifically commentary, but
Yeah.
It's that event cohesion point.
I think Roller Coaster Tycoon might be one of the best examples of what I believe is a first-time runner absolutely knocking it out of the park.
I think that run was maybe perfect.
Yeah,
it
no,
was world
it was-
record.
it was really close.
It was nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, and also the commentary had props during that run.
Yeah,
they had
yeah.
little
They had, like, coaster
little
seats.
roller
It
coaster
was
seats.
awesome.
So the commentary can be part of your bits.
Yes.
Bits. Have bits. Be funny. Come up with things beforehand that are going to be funny. Make sure that you can come up with stuff off the cuff that's going to be funny.
Yeah.
Both are important. Do both.
We can't teach you how to be funny. What we
Sadly.
can do is teach you to be funny. I will say, if you have props or if you want someone, the current Pokemon run had T-Pack come on stage and hit a little twirl. It was kind of awesome. If you have bits like that, please tell your producer in advance. They will ask you, but be prepared to communicate with the production to facilitate those, and don't be afraid to be a bit out of the box with it. I in no universe thought that Roller Coaster Tycoon would have roller coaster seats, and I did not think I would be seeing T-Pat on that Pokemon stage today. I'm not gonna lie, but it's all the better if you do have those really highly constructed bits that you can put together, and all of a sudden there's potential for a big joke, or people might latch onto it just like that, and boom, Trans Rights Coaster is a meme from this event now.
iPad baby content.
iPad baby content from last event.
year's Call of Duty 4 run. Highly recommend watching that. That really brought in a special bit that the commentary facilitated that made the run a lot more memorable. Today
Kind
they're
of-
doing it with the Pokemon run. It's all
Yeah.
sorts of good stuff.
Kind of on that note, please try to, this isn't always possible, but please try to get donations in on your bit. If you can get people, right now for this Pokemon run, they're doing a bingo board. Courtney, the host, Frozen Flagon, has a blank bingo board and is filling it in with donation comments recommending goals. That's genius. It
And
is
the
so
commentary
genius.
are holding them up and
Yeah.
encouraging this.
Yeah.
If your commentary is in that bit, then they are going to make it so much more successful. It's not just you driving it.
And the commentary made 2 of their own bingo cards. They have 4 cards and just didn't make Frozen Flagon one. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think this bingo board bit is really good.
Yeah, I agree.
but-
You liking bingo?
Unsurprising. Me liking Pokemon is the surprising
Yeah,
thing.
that is shocking.
You know when
That's
I'm like,
true.
this Pokemon run's pretty good. I'm
The
sorry. I'm a
Pokemon run's pretty good.
I'm a
Yeah.
Pokemon hater. It's my fault.
But yeah, so if you're impressing Claus, you're doing a very good job. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Pokemon Sword and Shield run from today, if you're watching later.
It is on right now if you turn
Yeah,
around.
it's on right now as we speak. But if you're
Pay
watching
attention
later
to the
on
panel.
YouTube,
Marcy,
go find that.
Marcy, turn around. Come on. Yeah.
Okay, how many commentators? This is really important.
Yes.
People do not think about this too often, but sometimes you're going to do better with just one commentator. Sometimes you want to fill the whole couch.
Yep.
It completely depends on what kind of run you're doing. So, for example, I'm going to talk about Children of the Sun. I invited Marcy, who's back there, onto that run, and I'm going to have one or maybe two commentators on that run because that run is so high focused and so locked in for Flame Fatales, by the way, that I'm not going to be able to talk, and I'm going to need somebody who has some focused couch, being
Yep.
able to explain things like really rapid fire. It is one of the fastest games I've ever seen played. So you need somebody who knows what they're doing and how to do it fast. So a good example of this, sorry, I'm tooting my own horn, but my commentary for Bobby Berm's Children of the Sun
Yes,
run last
excellent.
year. I knew that game really well, and I can talk really fast, and that's what that game needed. If
Yep.
there was somebody else on the couch, it would have butted in, and it would have been harder to understand what was going on screen. So it really depends on your game. It really depends on what you're doing, because sometimes also when you have like big Pokemon games, you
Yeah.
know, you're gonna have a lot of time to fill. You want more commentators there.
Yes.
You want more commentators with a good dynamic with each other, so you have more air, you know, ideas on how to fill the air.
Yeah. This is also kind of why I would personally recommend against doing solo commentary. Some people can pull it off really effectively, but not many. Just having someone there so you can refocus sometimes or not explain a certain trick while you're going for it, so on and so forth, really, really useful. It's not always possible to get second commentators, especially if your game's really niche. If you're a new runner, it's some like PS2 game no one's ever heard of. That can be hard, but you should still try to meet the people you're hanging out with at GDQ. There are plenty of people here. They're all very kind. Just trying to get that second person on gives you a lot of wiggle room to make flubs or mistakes or refocus. It's a godsend.
It really is. And this is not on this slide, but two things you can do to alleviate that. If you have a game where you don't have a natural fit on commentary, even if none of your friends really would be a good fit, you can find people who generally like to do commentary and
Yeah.
ask them. Most people will say yes or will direct you towards someone who will say yes. That is a very, very common thing. And also, you can make commentary guides. Commentary guides are great. If you make a guide, either video or text or both, then even a commentator who has no idea what your game is about is going to be able to jump in easier, say yes easier, and be more attentive towards your run. Yep. Yeah, special commentary types. So these are a couple things that are you can have during your run that aren't the standard person who knows about the game and can talk about it. Blind commentary. These are people who have never ever seen the run before. Can be really fun, but you got to be careful. You have to pick people who have good reactions, and you have to have a game that would have a good reaction as well. You don't want to have a game that's kind of a standard game or a game that everyone's seen. You want to have a game that has a really interesting twist on the speed run, or a game that nobody's
It's
ever
a
seen.
glitchy mess.
Yeah, exactly. Cece, who's in the audience, I feel like has a lot of amazing game choices for exactly this purpose, where you go and you're like, what's happening
Yeah.
right now? Yeah, so you have to think about when you're going to be using blind commentary and who you're picking for your blind commentary.
I will say two things. Golf with Your Grandmother. I think everyone watched that last
event,
had
yeah.
some of the best blind commentary I've ever seen. Secondly, blind commentators should not have to be asked what they're thinking. They should tell you what they're thinking at any given moment of downtime. If you have to, in practice, ask, what are you thinking about the run? Generally, that's a good sign that you've made a wrong decision, and you'll probably have to cut them from your couch. And also, don't be afraid to cut people from your couch if they're not doing well in practice. You should do that.
Yes.
You can be nice about it. You can say, sorry, it's just not really going to work out, I think. You
Yeah,
have
not a good
different
fit
ideas.
is a great line, because
Yeah.
it's also just true.
Yeah, that is totally fine, and I've done it plenty of times. I've done it well over like 10, 15 times out of the 100 runs I've done. It helps that I run the same game over and over again.
Yeah.
So I kind of get an idea. But the first time's never going to be perfect.
Exactly. And then the second one, which PVZ did end up having and
yay.
doesn't quite fit some of these criteria we're going to say about, but
Yeah.
it fits some. Developer commentary, yay. Yeah, developers can be really, really cool to have on couch. They can offer insights into the game that you've never heard. They can explain the back end of things in a way that you would not be able to understand, and they can react. I would say that was a really cool thing for having Rich Werner on our
Yeah.
PvZ run, is he really did not expect the way we were playing the game, and those
Yeah.
reactions were really fun.
Yeah.
And also for a game like PvZ with a lot of history, it was very cool to see some unveiled history from a game that has been around for a long time and is well beloved. So it really depends on your game. Seafrog earlier this marathon had a
Yes.
developer commentary that was very different. It was more about the technicalities of the run and how they came up with the game, because the game is so recent that it doesn't have all these sort of cultural impacts.
Yeah.
So it was more about highlighting the game itself and the development process and how it works.
Yeah, I think one thing that people do kind of get wrong about dev commentary is not giving a ton of room for dev commentary. This can be really, really hard for games that are pretty short or pretty fast. But generally, you want to try to give your devs at least, I would say, honestly, aiming for about half the run of the dev talking is
At the very least, about the same
pretty
amount of time
good.
you're going to give the host.
Yeah. So that can be really hard.
Yeah.
Especially if your dev is not very present on stage. That can be a really tricky thing. Try to also, maybe this is a weird note to lead on. Try to find devs who have done like interviews
Yes.
or have talked to the public, are public-facing devs. That helps a lot. One of the runs I think of the most when talking about dev commentary is the Fire Emblem Three Houses run that Claris did back in 2019, I think.
I don't remember.
One of those years, it's been a long time, where they had the voice actor for Claude. I think it was AGDQ 2020.
You might be right about that.
in-person
Yeah,
AGDQ.
yeah.
The voice actor for Claude, one of the three major characters in that game, hopped on comms, and he was just electric. He was so good. He really brought something really interesting and special to a game that, you know, isn't for everyone. TAC RPGs are a pretty niche area of speedruns, and not everyone is going to really vibe with tactical RPG speedruns. But I think anyone can watch that run and have a really great time.
Also, dev commentary, of course, is going to be super niche because most people are
Very
not
niche.
going to be able to contact devs and get them on to their runs.
This is why you should run
yeah.
indie games.
So true. Indie game devs are more likely to say yes. I had the Children of the Sun solo dev on one of my runs
Yes.
once because he was just like, oh, yeah, I want to, I want to be in it. And that was super cool. But, the reason I was able to get Rich Werner for Plants vs. Zombies is because this is a mainline GDQ and
Yep.
I am GDQ staff and I emailed with my GDQ email.
Yep.
So, it really depends on what kind of influence you have and what marathon that you're doing, whether you're going to be able to get a good dive commentator. But it doesn't hurt to reach out. Always try.
Yeah, I have a dev on commentary for my backup run that probably won't get pulled. And it's just an indie game that like no one knows about. So
It's awesome though. Frequency Point. Go watch
yeah,
stuff
don't
about
watch
it
it.
and play it.
It's pretty. Go
it's
play
pretty
it.
wacky though. It's a
It's
blind
pretty crazy.
commentary run for
Yeah,
sure.
that's a blind commentary run.
Yeah. Anyways, practice. Hey,
Yay.
I'm saying it makes perfect, but it doesn't. It actually just makes improvement.
Yeah.
Be remembering that you are not going to be perfect. We'll talk about that more. And
You'll be pretty far from it in most cases, and that's
Yes,
okay. That's totally
that is
fine.
fine. The goal of practice should be to get your time consistently lower, not necessarily to do a bunch of PBs in a row. It should be to make sure that your runs are coming in at a lower time and making sure you meet your estimate the vast majority of the time. If you're not making your estimate the vast majority of the time, ask for your estimate to be changed. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, considering doing no resets to meet that end. So no resets are basically just playing the run as you would in the marathon. That's going to help you get a better idea of not only what your average time is going to be, but also just make sure you practice everything in equal amount so that you're ready for all parts of the run. Dedicated and focused practice. So, of course, you can just kind of do no resets like you'd do a PB attempt, but you should also make sure to do no resets like you do them on stage. Do them with commentary. Do them with your commentary. Use safety strats, right?
Yes.
The ones that you think you're going to be doing on stage instead of the ones that you'd be doing for a PB attempt, etc., etc.
No resets are amazing for making backup strats. Being able to on the fly correct yourself is huge. It's a skill that apparently not a lot of people have. This isn't great because I'm not a great example for talking about this because it's really easy for me. I ran a category that is entirely dictated by RNG. All of your movement is based on what you see and how you react. So I'm pretty good at it. But it's a skill you need to really practice. Being able to on the fly correct is super, super important for marathons, especially if there's stuff that if you do wrong can just outright kill the run. That is going to be dangerous. You need to have backup saves.
Yeah.
Please make backup saves
Backup
if you can.
saves, very,
backup
very
saves
important.
are the most important thing. Not being prepared can lead to literal nightmare scenarios that have happened in the past. It is terrifying to be on that stage and have a run-killing mistake and not be ready with a backup. Please make backup saves before the run. That is tip number 1 for practicing. Make backup saves.
Yeah, and
Do
then
it
of
during a
course,
no reset.
if you have these points where you have a really difficult trick and you might not execute it all of the time, doing focused practice on just that trick or
Yes.
just that section of the run can also be really helpful so that you just have your consistency down on something that, if missed, will chop your run, into little bitty pieces.
Yeah, I would say one tip I've gotten is take a few splits, 1 or 2 areas, and do practice from the start of that area to the end. And that'll be really useful in making backups because you'll miss a trick and then have to think on the fly, just like you'd have to in a run where usually you might reset, but you'd have to think on the fly on how to make that backup. And that's going to help a lot in your actual run attempts where you're wanting
True.
to PB, because now you'll know how to react to it, and immediately you can lose a few seconds, sure, but you'll be able to continue the run.
Right, exactly. If you're 30 seconds ahead, you make a 5-second mistake, that's still a PB, unless, otherwise you might just flounder and not be sure what to do.
Yep.
Also, practice the end of your run. Even if you're doing no resets, you still have probably done the beginning of your run way more than the end of your run. So make sure to be practicing later sections of your run if you are able to do so separately, if you can. And then, of course, consider avoiding, over practicing. That's actually a really big problem.
That's a
And
big
Claus
thing.
can speak to that more from
If
personal
you-
experience.
If you are spending most of the event in the practice room practicing your run, you are over practicing. You need to take breaks. I take breaks all the time. I almost always, right after submission period closes, take a break from the game. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to see it. I just spent so much time preparing the submission, getting my time down. I don't want to see it or touch it. Immediately after games list releases, I'll do a D-Rust or 2 and then take a week break. I'll take a week break right before the event where I'll not touch the game for a few days at the bare minimum. Unless I really want to keep running, taking breaks really often refocuses your mind and it kind of ingrains in your muscle memory what you're going to do. It can be a bit difficult to come back and de-rust, but you'll get it really quickly. And that helps a lot in marathon runs because it makes you have to adapt to new situations, right? So coming back to de-rust can be a huge help in marathon runs specifically because you're gonna just spend the whole run being kind of bad, but you'll be able to see what you did wrong, get a feel again for the muscle memory, and it really helps with, I would say, focus most of anything. You'll be able to feel reinvigorated for the run on the event day.
Yeah, do things with family and friends before the event. It's really important to,
Yes.
or do other stuff that, you enjoy, reading, hobbies, go outside.
Of course, be excited
yeah.
for your run, but that doesn't mean you have to play it 24/7. It doesn't mean you have to stream it 24/7. Take off days, play new games, find new speedruns, learn a new game or two. I do that all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
Yeah, and of course, don't under practice though, because if you're coming into your run rusty, then you're going to have trouble meeting your estimate. You're going to feel worse about yourself during the run, and it's going to show. So obviously, do practice though.
I can also speak to that from experience because one of my runs, Spark the Electric Jester 3, basically the entire event week, I was like, I don't really want to practice. I am really burnt out. I had a really hard grind the month before to try to push for a world record. So I was at the event. I was like, I just want to spend a bunch of time with my friends. I generally speaking try to make a no speed running rule for myself so I can actually spend time with people. That was a mistake because that run ended up having quite a large amount of very unusual mistakes, I would say, and it really kind of made it tricky in the moment to have the best showing possible. I still think I did a good job with the cards I was dealt, but I could have had a reshuffle of the cards if I had just practiced some on the event. I would say, personally, depending on your run, depending on how long it is wise to do one practice run a day, maybe every 2 days. At the bare minimum, if you might need a little bit more if you're rusty, do more, but at the bare minimum, 1 or 2 every few days.
Yeah, and of course that depends on the length of your run as well,
Yes,
and
100%.
what kind of run you're doing. Some runs are much more intensive than others.
Yes.
So, adjust accordingly. Mental health. So we were talking about that before, of course, a little bit more, but we're going to focus in on it here. And if you want to hear more about this, there's going to be a panel about speedrunning and mental health on Friday. Highly recommend going to that. Osborne's going to be leading that with who is also on it? Jaxler?
Jaxler, yeah.
Jaxler, that's right. Yeah, that'll be really, really informative. But we're just going to talk about it a little bit here. Prioritize yourself. You are the runner. You're the one who's making it happen. If you're not happy, no one's happy. So, take care of your basic needs first, and then your psychological needs second. If both of those are good, then you're going to just be good up there on stage. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Please eat before you run.
Yeah.
This is a mistake I've made, and it sucks.
Also, eat before your panel.
Yeah, I didn't eat before this panel.
Sorry,
but,
I'm making fun of Claus.
yeah,
Continue.
Yeah, eating is important. Wow, this is a health and nutrition panel now. Like, the bare minimum is enough, but I just want to highlight that because I've experienced being hungry on stage. It sucks. It kills you from the inside out.
Yes.
Please eat.
And also, do this for yourself and then do it for others too. Make sure to check in on people.
Yeah.
I brought food for Claus so that it's not dying. So,
I had a chewy granola bar. Yum. The other thing I will say, if you do not feel ready for your run, no matter what it is, it can be anything from family emergencies to mental health episodes, doesn't matter. Say that you can't do your run. Do not be afraid to. If you can push through it, do your run, of course. Don't give up the opportunity if you feel like there's a space in your heart that says you can. But don't be afraid to back out of the event. I will say, from experience, if you back out of the event voluntarily, like for any reason, and then resubmit, Games Committee will, generally speaking, unless some extraneous circumstances prevent it, take you again. So don't be afraid to.
as long as you're, apologetic and expressive.
Yes, as long as you give them a good explanation of why you had to.
Right. And then most people are nice. Whoa, most people are nice, genuinely. If you say, you had a bad day, something happened, fireworks were going off outside your building and you couldn't sleep. I'll tell you that story later. Whatever. People are mostly going to take you at your word, be kind to you, and say, that sounds hard, please take care of yourself, we will figure it out.
Yep.
This is why marathons have backup runs.
That's true.
Yep. And also make this kind of space for your commentary as well. If your couch is not feeling well, somebody is, having a hard time, make space for them to back out to if they need to.
All right.
Yeah.
Mental health's hard.
And then that's the end of the content. You can find us at all of these places and also in person right now. And
That's
to
true,
that
wow.
end, if anybody has any questions, now's the time. I know we've been yapping for a long time.
Yeah,
but
try to
we
make it
can
quick.
answer questions.
Short questions only, please. If you do
Yeah,
have questions,
very, very short.
you can DM us on Blue Sky or
Or find us.
Discord.
Yeah.
We're around.
Yep. All right.
I'm not seeing any hands. So
Yeah, so
it means we did
yay.
a good job.
Hopefully we did a good
Yay.
job. Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Yep.
I hope you're ready to get a lot of money for charity next time you run. Yay!
Yay. Hope you had fun.
Yeah.